Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Chason Runkle, and I'm an Emergency Operations Manager at Denver International Airport, and I am proud of that title. Now, that's a newer title for me, and it wasn't one I thought I would have until about 4 years ago when I came to a harsh realization that I was a fraud. My wife and I, we had just started our family. We had a newborn son at home, and we were exhausted, barely staying awake, running on caffeine and diaper fumes. But on one of those sleepless nights, I had an inflection point. I was holding my newborn son, and I was thinking, wow, you can do anything you want to in this world. You can be anyone you want to be. And then it hit me. I was a phony. I was going to raise my children to believe they can become anything they want, but I didn't believe it for myself. Now, at the time, I was a ramp tower controller, controlling aircraft, which was a great job. And just like my other positions at the airport, in airside operations, in our communications center, they were great jobs. But there was one that I always coveted. It was that of the emergency manager. Now, to me, besides first responders, these were the heroes of the airport, the ones who can do no wrong. They bring everyone together, they always make the right decisions, and they steer the ship through the storm. I wanted that role, and I wanted that title. But when that position opened up, I did nothing. I thought it was too difficult. I thought, no, you're not ready for that. You need to stay away from that one. So I didn't apply. And then when it opened again, I did nothing. I jumped to the conclusion that I wasn't capable, that a career shift from controlling aircraft to emergency management at the old age of 32 was impossible. But then I had my inflection point that night, and I realized I have to embody that mindset that I'm trying to instill in my family. So I decided to go all in. No longer was I going to jump to the conclusion that I wasn't enough or wasn't capable or whatever other excuse I was coming up with. But instead, I was going to jump at the next opportunity to be an emergency manager. And by jump, I mean I prepared. I put myself in a position to be the best candidate, and when that interview came, I nailed it. I wasn't politely knocking at the door. I was kicking it down. Then that call came. I got it. I was promoted to an emergency manager. I got that title. Chin held high. I walked in the office that first day, took a deep breath, and I thought, oh crap, now what do I do? So now you're all good leaders in this room. You know there is a difference between possessing a title and earning a title. This was day one. How was I going to live up to those emergency managers I've admired for all these years? Even I knew I wasn't going to be faking it until I make it in this scenario. I quickly realized that my jumping to opportunity, it wasn't done with just getting the job. In order to be successful, I had to continue that mindset. So I came up with a plan, and I focused on 4 areas. And I think these 4 areas can help anyone transition to a new role. That's continuous learning, establishing relationships, being comfortable with being uncomfortable, and then failing forward. Now here's what I mean. Continuous learning, easy enough. I jumped at every chance I could to learn more about emergency management. Remember, I'm an airport operations guy. I had that operations background, but emergency management was still newish to me. So any document, any course, any exercise or training, however I could, I soaked up that emergency management knowledge. And then establishing relationships. Now I'm sure all of you would agree, an emergency manager is only as good as the relationships they've established. When those big incidents happen, it's that culture that you've cultivated that determines how successful you're going to be. So it didn't matter what the situation was. If somebody came to me for help, whether it be advice on a project or anything, it didn't matter. I was there ready to jump at the opportunity to be a resource. But I didn't pretend to be something I wasn't. I knew it would take years to gain the institutional knowledge needed to master that type of position. So I embraced not knowing all the answers. There's no way to know everything. And in the beginning, when people came to me with questions, I would have to say, I don't know, but let me go find out. More times than I wanted to. But I always came back with an answer, and I never faked those answers. Sometimes I had to go to the ends of the earth to find one, but I always came back with one. And eventually, the I don't knows became the, oh yeah, I know that, or I know exactly who you need to talk to. And I wasn't afraid to go out there and ask those questions either. People have answers, and more times than not, they're willing to share those answers with those who seek it. It's just being authentic. In fact, the Harvard Business Review found that 75% of employees want more authenticity in the workplace. So don't be afraid to embody it. More times than not, it's going to be well received. And then being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Jumping in when everything in your mind is telling you not to. When I was first hired on, I was asked to help plan a 5K race at one of our runways, an event that had never been done before. Now, did I know anything about planning a 5K? No. But did I jump in and do it anyways? Absolutely. And I kept jumping at every chance I could, hosting seminars, conducting after-action reviews, writing disaster recovery plans. Now, was I perfect along the way? No. But the point for me was not to be perfect. The point was to not shy away from adversity, and when I failed forward. Now, who here knows what I mean by fail forward? Raise your hands. Good. For those who don't know, it comes from the author John C. Maxwell, who describes it as turning mistakes into stepping stones for success. Now, I know emergency management doesn't go perfectly. If it did, I would never have to write another after-action review. That's part of the process. It's how we improve, and it fosters growth. So by owning my own mistakes and turning those mistakes into opportunities for improvement, I'm able to do exactly like we do in emergency management and exactly like John C. Maxwell wants us to do. I failed early, I failed often, and I promise you I failed often, but I would always fail forward. And I use those 4 areas today to keep becoming a better EM. But it all started when I had my inflection point, and then when I had jumped at my opportunity. But the real question is, did I become like those emergency managers that I always wanted to be, those heroes of the airport? No, not even close. That's okay, because I learned something along the way of becoming an EM. And that's where this talk shifts from me to all of you in the room. Don't become your heroes. People always say, don't meet your heroes. Well, don't become your heroes. Just focus on becoming you. Now, this isn't a self-help talk, but I do want it to be a self-realization talk for those in the room who want more. Whether you're brand new to emergency management or you're a senior manager trying to become a director, don't sit on the sidelines thinking that you're not enough or you're not capable or whatever excuse you're coming up with. Instead, I want you to go home, digitally dust off your resume, go find your opportunity, and then jump with everything you have. And then when you get to where you've made it, be ready to continue jumping. Be ready to continue learning. Be ready to establish those relationships. Be ready to jump in when everything in your mind's telling you not to, like talking at an IAEM conference. And then be ready to fail, but always forward and never back. Thank you all for listening today. My name is Chason Runkle, and I'm proud to say I'm an emergency manager. Thank you.